Just in, more craziness in women's college basketball today. A great matchup for the SEC title game. Last year's national champion LSU against #1 unbeaten South Carolina. This is how it ended. And notice there aren't many players coming off the bench to celebrate. That's because they all got kicked out of the game a couple minutes earlier. With about 2 minutes to go, this is how it all started. An intentional foul. Flau'jae Johnson, the LSU player, then gets clobbered by Camila Cardozo. And ESPN's reporting that the fan that jumped onto the court is Flau'jae's brother, and he was taken off in handcuffs. You can't leave the bench at all during a scuffle. If you do, you're ejected. Both sides saw their benches empty. So everybody got kicked out of this game that was on the bench. So did Cardozo for levying that blow, and that's likely going to mean that she's going to have to sit out the first round of the NCAA tournament. Here are the players that were still available after the disqualifications. Now, South Carolina had 6 players. LSU was down to 5 players. And by the way, if you get down to 4 players or 3 players, the game can still go on. We saw it happen in men's basketball 6 or 7 years ago with an Alabama-Minnesota game that finished 3-on-5. Bottom line, though, is South Carolina wins at 79-72. They stay unbeaten. They get to 32-0, but they will not have Camila Cardozo in the first round of the tournament against whoever is the 16 seed that'll be facing the #1 overall seed, South Carolina. All right, let's bring in Erica Ayala. Look, you say each day you see something you've never seen before. I haven't seen this in the women's game before. How would you describe that scene there with about 2 minutes to go?
Well, first, I think we have to talk about South Carolina. As you mentioned, an undefeated team. And they did so in dramatic fashion, or at least we thought dramatic fashion against Tennessee. This just upped the ante. This game against LSU, we know LSU is the reigning NCAA champions. They had a pretty contentious game earlier in the season, and so we knew it was going to be fireworks. I don't know that anyone expected this, and as you mentioned, also having implications in the NCAA tournament. But you have to give credit to South Carolina. Malaysia Fulwiley coming up huge for the Gamecocks. And so that's the first thing that we have to talk about. Now, when it comes to the scuffle and the brawl, tensions were high coming into this game. Both teams had very dramatic semifinal games, and you started seeing the chippiness throughout the game. And it just got a little bit intense as the minutes started ticking down. As you can see there, just an intentional foul in midcourt and a little bit of, as we say sometimes, peacocking a little bit there. And then players taking exception, wanting to stand up for their teammates, which is a very natural thing to happen. The only thing is, as you've mentioned, when you come off the bench, when you put an extra shove like Cardozo did, you make yourself a prime target when it comes to the ejections and any suspensions that are going to come. And that is going to be a challenge because it will have implications as the teams move forward in the NCAA tournament.
Overall seed and going to play a 16 seed in the first round. Even without Camila Cardozo in that first round game, I can't imagine that you would expect much of a challenge from a 16 seed against a team as good and as deep as South Carolina, right?
You've seen Cardozo absent with her national team, and South Carolina was able to soldier on. And yes, with a 16 seed, you wouldn't assume that this is going to be difficult. But what we do know about this South Carolina team is they usually are good at closing games. That doesn't mean it won't be entertaining or even close at times throughout. But yes, in the nature of the NCAA tournament, the way that we are expecting things to go, we would expect South Carolina to be able to advance even without Cardozo.
South Carolina, for most of the season, was just rolling teams. These last 2 games, they showed that they could step up to the plate when their backs were against the wall. Today, LSU came back, cut it to 1 late. They respond with a run. Of course, we remember what happened in the semifinals with the last-second shot. What has South Carolina proven to you just in the last couple of games?
I think, again, it's that they close games well and that Dawn Staley is their leader. She talks about building floor generals. Well, she is an OG floor general, whether it's with Virginia in the ABL, in the WNBA, and she's putting that, instilling that confidence in her players. And there's a lot of trust there. So when it comes down to the wire, South Carolina, they trust their team, they trust their coach, and they trust that they can get it done. And whether you're talking about round 1 against a 16 seed, or you're talking about however far they go, Elite 8, Final 4, this is a confident South Carolina team that is never out, and that makes them an exciting team to watch in the NCAA tournament.
What a day of women's college basketball here, kind of championship Sunday for most of these major conferences, a week ahead of selection Sunday for the men and the women. Erica Ayala here reacting to what was another incredible matchup between South Carolina and LSU. Those are the two favorites right now to win it all. South Carolina head and shoulders above everybody else, though, in Vegas at -115 to win it. Then it's a drop down to LSU at +550. And then it's the Iowa Hawkeyes, who likely wrapped up a 1 seed as well with a comeback victory today in the Big Ten championship game. They are +600 to win the whole thing.